The night shift. I've worked the graveyard shift at the Starlight Diner for as long as I can remember. That should probably bother me more than it does, the not remembering. But the nights are long, and thinking too hard about anything makes them longer. So, I pour coffee and wipe down counters and watch the highway through the big front windows, and try not to wonder why I can't recall my first day here, or what I did before, or where I go when my shift ends. I must go somewhere. Everyone goes somewhere. The diner sits off exit 34, halfway between the city and nowhere. We get truckers mostly, and the occasional insomniac, and the kind of people who end up at a 24-hour diner at 3 a.m. because they don't have anywhere else to be. I know the type. I used to be one of them before I started working here, before I stopped sleeping and started pouring coffee instead. The regulars are what make it bearable. There's Marla, who comes in around midnight and orders decaf like it matters. She sits in the third booth from the door and stares out the window at headlights that never seem to arrive. There's Doug, the trucker, with the faded baseball cap, who nurses a single cup for hours and never says more than thanks when I refill it. There's a teenager in the corner booth, I don't know her name, never asked, who hunches over her phone with her hood up, earbuds in, like she's hiding from something she can't outrun. And then there's Mr. Carroll. He's my favorite regular. Has been since I started, I suppose. He comes in every night at exactly 2:15 a.m., never earlier, never later. The door chimes, and there he is, tall and thin, white hair combed neat, wearing the same brown cardigan like it's a uniform. He sits in the booth by the window, the one with the cracked vinyl seat, and he orders the same thing every time. Coffee, please, and a slice of the cherry pie. His voice is soft, polite in a way that feels old-fashioned, like he learned his manners in a different century. He always tips too much, $5 on a $4 check, and when he leaves, he nods at me like we've shared something important. I look forward to 2:15. I didn't realize how much until the night I thought I'd lost him. It was a slow Tuesday, or maybe Wednesday. The days blur together when you only see the dark parts of them. Someone had left a newspaper on the counter, unusual since most people scroll their phones now, but I appreciated the novelty. I flipped through it during a dead stretch, scanning headlines I wouldn't remember, and that's when I saw his face, Mr. Carroll, smiling in a photo that looked like it had been taken years ago, maybe decades, younger but unmistakably him, those kind eyes, that gentle expression. The headline above the photo read, "Local man dies at 78, no surviving family." I read the obituary twice, 3 times. Heart attack, it said, passed peacefully in his home, services pending. The newspaper was dated 6 months ago. I set it down carefully like it might bite, looked at the empty booth by the window, the one with the cracked vinyl seat, checked the clock. 2:14 a.m. I told myself I'd misread it. The photo wasn't him. Lots of old men look alike. The name was common enough. There had to be more than one Arthur Carroll in a city this size. I was tired. I was seeing things. The door chimed. 2:15 a.m. Mr. Carroll walked in. He moved to his usual booth with the same measured steps, the same slight stoop in his shoulders, sat down, folded his hands on the table, looked up at me with those kind eyes and waited. I couldn't move. "Coffee, please," he said after a moment, "and a slice of the cherry pie." His voice was the same. His face was the same. But something was wrong, something I couldn't name, something I could only feel in the way my skin prickled and my stomach dropped. I poured his coffee, cut his pie, carried them to the booth with hands that didn't shake because I wouldn't let them. "Thank you," he said. I watched him eat. That's when I saw it. The way his fork moved to his mouth. Mechanical, delayed, like a film running slightly too slow. The way he chewed without seeming to taste anything. The way he stared at the pie between bites, not with hunger or satisfaction, but with something like confusion, like he was trying to remember what eating was for. And his eyes. When he looked at me, he looked through me, and then past me, and then at something just behind my face that I couldn't see and didn't want to. He stayed until 3, same as always, left his $5 tip, same as always, nodded at me on his way out, same as always. But he wasn't the same, and once I saw it in him, I couldn't unsee it in the others. Marla came in at midnight, same as always, ordered decaf, same as always. But when I brought it to her, she didn't say thank you. She just stared at the cup like she'd never seen one before, and when she finally lifted it to her lips, she didn't drink, just held it there, steam rising past her unblinking eyes for almost a minute. Doug the trucker sat at the counter, hat pulled low. I tried to make conversation, asked about the roads, the weather, anything. And he nodded at the right times, but his mouth didn't quite sync with his words. Like a dubbed film. Like a puppet being operated by someone who'd never seen a person talk. The teenager in the corner booth never looked up from her phone, but when I passed close enough to the screen, it was black, dead. She was staring at nothing, thumbs moving over glass that showed no light at all. I started looking them up. The diner had Wi-Fi. I'd never thought about it before, but there it was, a little router blinking behind the register. I searched for Marla first, describing her as best I could, and it took a while, but eventually I found her. Car accident, 8 months ago, wrong-way driver on the interstate. I searched for Doug next. It was easier with the trucking company logo on his cap. Overdose, a year ago, found in his rig at a rest stop 60 miles from here. The teenager was the hardest. I didn't have a name, didn't have much to go on, but I remembered the high school logo on her hoodie, and that narrowed it down. Her name was Bethany, 17 years old. She'd been missing for 2 years. They never found the body. I sat behind the counter with my phone in my hands, and the diner hummed around me, and I understood, really understood, that everyone in this room was dead. Everyone except me. I tried to leave that night. When my shift ended, it must have ended. There must have been a moment when I was supposed to go. I walked to the door and pushed. It didn't open. Not locked, not stuck. It just didn't open. The same way a wall doesn't open. The same way the sky doesn't open when you reach for it. The door was there. I could see through the glass to the parking lot outside, the highway beyond, the darkness that stretched in every direction. But my hands pressed flat against nothing, and no matter how hard I pushed, I couldn't make myself pass through. I tried the back door, the windows, even thought about breaking the glass, but when I swung a chair at it, the chair passed through my hands like smoke and clattered to the floor on the other side. I was trapped. I was trapped, and everyone around me was dead, and I searched my own name. It took longer than the others. I couldn't remember it first, had to reach for it like something floating just beneath the surface of dark water, slipping away every time I got close. But eventually, I caught it, typed it with fingers that felt numb, distant, like they belonged to someone else. The search results loaded. There was a photo, me but younger, smiling in a way I didn't recognize, a way that looked like it belonged to a different person. The obituary was dated 8 months ago. I read it. I read about the job I'd lost, the apartment I'd been evicted from, the calls I'd stopped returning, the friends I'd pushed away, the slow spiral that everyone saw but no one could stop. I read about how they'd found me. I read the phrase, self-inflicted, and the word, alone, and the sentence, no services planned at the family's request. And I understood. I'd never applied for this job. I'd never shown up for a first shift. I'd never done anything but die, and that I was here, behind the counter, pouring coffee for the dead like it was all I'd ever known. The man in the corner booth stood up. I'd forgotten he was there. I always forgot he was there, somehow, even though I couldn't remember a time when he wasn't. He'd been sitting in that same spot every night, every single night, with his coffee and his pie that he never seemed to finish. I'd refilled his cup 1,000 times, asked if he'd needed anything 1,000 more, and he'd always just nodded, never speaking, never leaving, never changing. But now he was walking toward me. He was older than Mr. Carroll, older than anyone I'd ever seen. His face was lined like cracked leather, his eyes sunk deep in shadows, but there was something gentle in them, something tired and sad and kind. He stopped in front of the counter, put his hand on my shoulder. It was warm, solid, real. "Stop looking," he said. His voice was like gravel and honey, rough and sweet at the same time. I don't." "Stop looking," he said again. "It only makes it worse." I couldn't speak, couldn't breathe, could only stand there with my phone in my hand, my obituary glowing on the screen, my whole life, my whole death laid out in words I couldn't take back. "Not remembering is better than remembering," he said. "Trust me, I looked for a long time, years maybe, decades. It doesn't help. It doesn't change anything. It just makes the nights longer." He squeezed my shoulder, gentle the way a father might. "I know it's hard. I know you want to understand, but understanding isn't the same thing as peace, son. Some doors are better left closed." He nodded toward his booth, the one in the corner, the one he'd never left, as far as I could remember. "Come, sit with me. Have some coffee, a piece of pie." I looked down at my phone, at the face that used to be mine, smiling in a photo I didn't remember taking. I turned the screen off, slid the phone into my pocket, followed him to the corner booth and sat down across from him, my back to the door, my eyes on the table. He raised a hand, and someone was there, suddenly, behind the counter. A woman I didn't recognize. She'd always been there, I realized. The night shift had more than one person. Of course it did. How could I have forgotten? "2 coffees," said the old man, "and 2 slices of cherry pie." The coffee came. The pie came. Steam rose between us, curling in the fluorescent light. Outside, the highway was empty. No headlights, no sound. Just darkness stretching in every direction, and the diner glowing like a beacon in the middle of nowhere. I picked up my fork. The old man smiled, just slightly, just enough. "That's it," he said, "just like that. One night at a time." I took a bite. The pie was sweet. The coffee was warm. The booth was comfortable in a way I hadn't expected, like it had been waiting for me. The door chimed. 2:15 a.m. Mr. Carroll walked in, headed for his usual booth by the window. I watched him sit, watched him fold his hands, watched him wait for someone to take his order, patient and kind and wrong in ways that didn't matter anymore. The old man took a sip of his coffee. "You get used to it," he said. "The nights, the faces, the routine. Does it ever end?" He was quiet for a long moment. "I don't know," he said, "but I've stopped asking." I nodded, took another bite of pie. Somewhere behind the counter, the woman I didn't recognize was pouring coffee for Marla, who just walked in, who always walked in at midnight, who would keep walking in forever. The night continued. The night always continued. And for the first time since I'd started working here, since I'd died, since I'd ended up in this place that wasn't a diner, wasn't purgatory, wasn't anything I had a name for, I didn't mind. The pie was good. The company was better. One night at a time.